palpation can give you a lot more information. And if you, let's say that you were thinking about these Shaoyin, these various Shaoyin pairs. Let's say you were thinking about them. You then do channel palpation. You find findings that are on the opposite side channel. So you might find that they have a significant back stiffness, for instance, or stiff neck. This is not exactly channel palpation, but it's connected to that, to those ideas, or calf, lumps in the calf, or trigger points. In other words, there's significant Tai Yang involvement, then I would be more likely to use Tai Yang points, at least in part. To be honest with you, I usually use the Shaoyin points because they're so effective for the organ itself, but it's just a question of how much Tai Yang might I involve with it.
So you wouldn't be using the Shaoyan? Because I thought that you could use.
Yeah, you can use Shaoyan. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can.
When would you be choosing to use
Channel palpation.
channel?
So if you don't go and do that channel palpation and then you go to the Shaoyang, it's like lump, 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 lump. Then you're like, oh wow, we're in the world of the Shaoyang.
Actually, could I give you an example of that? So you've got someone with like anxiety, maybe like hot flashes, stuff like that. These kind of very Shaoyin-y type symptoms, but then they're getting quite strong. All their symptoms are quite strong, quite big. So they're quite like aggressive hot flashes. They're also getting like migraines, headaches up the side of the heads. They've also got a lot of findings on the Shaoyang channels, and the pulse models will be like quite a little bit wiry as well as thing that you might think, well, actually I'm using Sanjiao 5 GB41, just try and vent it out that way, because that heat from the Shaoyin can then be transferred to other channel systems, can't it, and get stuck in there and cause all kinds of problems. You know, we use the same idea, don't we, with like liver fire rising from the liver channels, but you use the gallbladder channel to kind of drain that heat. So a very similar idea of interior-exterior paired channel relationships. There's quite a lot of those in TC, so it's very TCM.
Yeah, this is, so look, here is where I've written various signs in green. Shaoyang, lumps on triple burner gallbladder, as Nick said, wiry pulse. Now, wiry pulse, I'll just talk about that in a minute. Just going back to step A, or part A here, what I'm going to write in blue are extra parts of A. You can have a sense of the overall quality, and here are some factors that impact on sleep issues. If the overall quality is floating, what might that mean in terms of these questions?
Do mine.
An infection?
No, sorry, I'll have to tell you. If it's overall floating, sorry, just get my pen back, it equals the Tai Yang, okay? Because in the beginning of the Shan Han Lun, it says a floating pulse, a stiff neck, slightly feverish. It's a Tai Yang pattern, take Gui Tang, or cinnamon ginger decoction. So that's the most famous part of the Shan Han Lun, the beginning of it. So basically,
floating pulse, stiff neck.
Floating pulse. It says the beginning of the Shan Han Lun says, when there's a floating pulse, a stiff neck, a feeling of warmth, and aversion to wind, then it is what's called a wind strike pattern and it's a Tai Yang pattern of wind strike. You need to have the cinnamon ginger decoction. So that's the beginning. And then it goes through different kind of micro layers of when it's like that, you've got a cough, when it's like that, you've got this. So a floating pulse is a pure sign of a Tai Yang pulse, a Tai Yang pattern. So if you have somebody who's got the insomnia and they've got a floating pulse and they have cold symptoms, then you need to do something with the Tai Yang as well. So it does get complicated, this picture, right?
Yeah. Also, on the reverse side, it's the same as when the pulse was G. It's a tie-in.
Sorry, say it again.
And
Yeah.
on the flip side, when the pulse is very deep, it's a
Yes.
tie-in.
Yes,
And it's
yes.
something in fast, it's tie-in, but there's heat somewhere.
Exactly.
You've got to find the heat.
So in later on in the Shanhan Lun, it says if you have a deep pulse, then what does that mean? A deep pulse means it's not on the yang channels. It does not equal the yang channels. So therefore, it's going to be one of these other yang channels, in particular the Xiao Yin, in this case, with insomnia. If it's a wiry pulse, and a wiry pulse is defined as when you feel the pulse and it feels like a sharp edge, like the sharp edge of a table, that's something like the pulse is completely taut. It's not a bouncy pulse. A wiry pulse is a like a knife edge. Let's call it knife edge pulse instead of wiry, because it's so confusing, the word wiry. Knife edge, or in the classics it's called bowstring. Then the knife edge pulse makes you think of the Xiao Yang. So in the Shanhan Lun it says wiry pulse, alternating heat and cold, and lots of other things. What else does it say? Sore throat, lateral pain in the sides, problems with the eyes, I think, ears and eyes. It says that's a Xiao Yang. That's the definition of a Xiao Yang pattern.
Is it, sorry, the blue deep yang, is that with tie-in, was it, sorry?
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, if it's deep, it's yang. It's not yang.
It's not yang.
If it's deep or slow, it's not yang. A yang pattern. You would think of Xiao Yin or Shui Yin.
Oh, not tie-in.
You, in the context of insomnia, you would go to these two first.
Yeah.
In insomnia, because the TCM we have reflects that. By the way, tie-in patterns in the Shanhan Lun are all about digestive problems.
So the,
Tie-in problems in the Shanhan Lun are all digestive problems.
yes, yeah. There was a deep pulse. we
Yeah,
were saying.
deep as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically the deep says that it's not a yang pattern.
It's a little,
Deep means not yang.
deep means not yang, so you wouldn't use some 36 ladder testing 11.
Well, no, you would. But that's where it gets hard. It doesn't matter.
Sorry, just
No, it's fine.
in my head.
What would you, if there's an imbalance between left and right?
If, yes. Well, okay, if there is, it may reflect musculoskeletal problems. That's the main thing it reflects, is that there's a physical imbalance with the body. That would be found then with more symptoms on the right side, or more symptoms, whichever side has got more number is going to get more symptoms. That's the main thing. I know there is a side of husband-wife imbalance, but I just don't follow it.
I think that was the best treatment I've ever had was a husband-wife years ago, and
Right.
I thought, someone's found my CF, because I
Yeah.
looked out on air.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying it's not valid. It just, for
Yeah.
me, I haven't felt
for
it.
you, it doesn't.
Yeah. But it's also in relation to this pulse method. I'm not finding that husband to wife is something that's resonating with me, partially because my method of the My Jing works with looking at the classics and seeing, is it in the classic? In other words, I want to know if it's in the classic or not. I mean, for instance, if you would say, it is in the classic, it's in Nanjing or the Neijing, it could be. So what I'm saying is, show it to me in the classic, and then
You'll listen.
I'll listen and consider it with this method. And that's just my own decision about this method, as I'm just keeping the boundaries of it around things found in the classics of the Han Dynasty. Because I think the main thing about this method is that it's saving things that were lost, that we don't know what they meant. So that's the main thing about it. Not that that it's not exhaustive. It's not like saying it's everything.
No, but you've got to have your practice.
You've got to start somewhere. Yeah. Okay, if I can move on. This is a good intro level, right? Because actually we've just gone super deep anyway, because the idea of the overall quality on the pulse is actually quite an advanced method, because most of the time we just consider the qualities of individual positions. So feeling the whole quality is a knack. So we might do a little bit of that in a minute. Okay, so let's go to the My Jing Part B here. which, for those of you who have studied it, is to do with extraordinary vessels.
It's my favourite bit.
Me too. So it is, actually the word extraordinary is quite accurate for how unbelievable and extraordinary I think it is. So this brings you to the question of what can you diagnose, what kind of theory do we have with the extraordinary vessels that relate to insomnia? Okay, so I'd actually like to use your help here. I've got some ideas, and the ideas I have are derived from my clinical experience, not derived from book reading. Okay, so everything I have my method of part B comes out of the classics, but the meaning, the extraordinary vessels, comes out of my clinical experience. You understand what I mean by this?
Mm-hmm.
And that means I felt pulse pictures, I then treat the extraordinary vessels, and then I figure out what have I done afterwards. So that's my method, basically, is experiential. So it's an experiential method. So what theoretical connections do you know of, or even experiential methods, Clark and Amanda, if you've been doing this method, what experiential or theoretical connections do we have with insomnia or anxiety and the extraordinary vessels or pattern?
Opening the red mine
Opening the REM mind. And why do you say the REM mind? What do you think the REM mind has got to do
or
with?
yin deficiency.
Because it is to do with yin. Yeah, excellent. So yin is, I think it's called the Sea of Yin. I hope it's called the Sea of Yin. It's called the Sea of
The
something.
pen, yeah.
It's not the Sea of
Leather.
Yang,
It's the leather channel.
Yeah.
and it's not the Sea of Blood either.
No.
I associate it with being the most maternal type, a bit like
Yeah.
giving yourself a hug, that
Yeah.
kind of reassurance, emotional aspect of the 8 extras.
Okay,
That's how and the chong for blood. I'd use red and chong together.
okay. Chong for blood, where you suspect there's blood deficiency. Yeah, okay,
Or
so,
stagnation.
or
Yeah.
stagnation. Good. So the chong might be involved with blood stagnation, blood deficiency, perhaps.
Yeah.
The ren with yin deficiency, or all of those things associated with yin deficiency. So yeah, you're spot on. That's basically where I'm at with it as well. And this yin deficiency comes out in the usual suspects, primarily Shaoyin, heart or kidney. So we're going full circle here with the idea of the kind of the things that are associated with it. All right, just in terms of this is the way the yin unfolds, yin disharmony unfolds with the ren. I would expect, because of my knowledge of the associated opening points for the chong, for the pericardium to be associated with chong disharmony. That's again an experiential thing. Does anybody got any comments on that? Pericardium being involved with chong? Could be spleen.
Only in the sense of because the spleen, or I was looking at it the other way because obviously it's wrapped too much around the heart, so it's not allowing the blood to flow
Cool.
on the pump.
Yeah.
That's kind of constraint
The
Yeah.
side of things. Yeah,
The
okay.
chong sends blood to the heart.
I like that too.
From an anatomical perspective, I think the aorta and the vena cava,
Yeah.
the big sea of blood and the body, the aortic pulse that
Yeah.
you feel.
Yeah.
It's a good candidate for the sort of chong lines being a sea of blood, and that's the heart and kidneys. That's
Yeah.
the main blood flow between the heart and kidneys. So I kind of see it.
The chong mice being the sea of blood to do with the heart kidney.
So I see it as being
Yeah.
shouting.
Okay. Okay, so you think it's Shaolin. So I just want to emphasize, or not re-emphasize, but I want to tell you that we don't know really about the extraordinary vessels today. I mean, if you were to do a little experiment, get 50 acupuncturists in the room and say, right, I want you to all tell me about the extraordinary vessels, you get a completely different story from everyone. And these people have been in practice for years. Some people say, I never use it. I was taught never to use the extraordinary vessels. Some people say, I always do them. like I think Kiko Matsumoto. I think there are some schools where that's all they do. In my way of doing it, I say I should follow the symptoms to get me to the extraordinary vessels. So I don't do extraordinary vessels without feeling them symptomatically first. Other people say, no, I just select it from the book. So you get a lot of variety. And in the classics, the extraordinary vessel usage wasn't formulated properly at the beginning. It just came out in drips and drabs. So the people who are teaching now, who talk about extraordinary vessels a lot, are Jeffrey Yuen and Jeffrey Yuen's students, and Cecil Sturman in particular, who talk about, what's the other name of that lady? Somebody else who wrote it.
Farrell.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yvonne
Yvonne
Farrell.
Farrell. They talk about the psychological, the deep psychological meaning of the extraordinary vessels, which I think is really interesting to study. And I'd invite you to study those things with a sense of reservation. Don't think it's gospel, just think, okay, this is exploration. And in the same way, I'm exploring what these extraordinary vessels are from experience. So just think of it like that. I think it's a really interesting area. So, yeah, so
Liver's
that,
not in there with the chong.
say it again?
The liver.
No, I think the liver is involved there. I think the liver is involved because of the blood connection. So there are question marks about Chong and insomnia. So look out for it. See if you can see a Chong manifestation. And I know I haven't. Sam, are you familiar with my pulse teaching at all?
No.
Okay. So in brief, the part B is done like this, with the fingers coming down, all three fingers coming down onto the pulse. You touch the surface. In your mind, you divide it into three, and excess findings found at the bottom level is the Chong. In the middle, it's the Ren, and the top is the Du. And the feeling should be vertically upwards, like a battle rope coming up, hitting your finger. So those are real findings, and it's extremely accurate. I can't tell you how accurate these are. I believe that people often say that this is a wiry pulse because of their training, that they have felt things, and you think, oh, it's coming up, but actually it is one of these findings, and it comes out of the Mai Jing. It was the first time that was written, in about 200 AD. It was written, it's just in black and white, that it's Du, Ren and Chong.
Gosh, that's so interesting, isn't it? Because we asked this question at uni years ago, and one lecturer said categorically you can feel the lectures on the poles, and another one, so it was Rebecca Evern, who's married to Peter Knoll, and Peter Knoll said, no way,
Yeah.
you can't feel it. And they're married, and they and I was like, oh,
Who said
you
you
can't
can't?
even
Rebecca Rivera.
Rebecca said you can,
Oh,
and
good.
Peter said no nonsense, you can't.
Very good. Well,
So
I'm on
it's like-
Rebecca's. I'm on Rebecca's side.
So that's wonderful to
Bit
hear.
of that happened on that.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful, and it's really practical because I'm basically I follow this. So if I feel it, I do it. It's as simple as that because I believe it, and it's an experiment with myself, and it's an experiment with Chinese medicine. That what I said to myself, what if I just follow the pulse, not follow the theory, because the theories are often contradictory, and you can get into this grey area of thinking, should I use the Chong again? I did it 4 times in a row. Well, I just say, well, okay, the pulse is there again, so I'm going to follow the pulse.
And do you get a good pulse change from
Oh yeah.
after the
Oh yes,
Yeah.
this thing goes away
Straight away.
straight away, and you can test it. If you feel it, you can press the point, and you can see it going away. Right. So basically, let's just say I have most experience with the REM to do with this. To be honest, all right. So I'd just like to confine my talking right now to be to do with the REM. So from the REM, the point that is most commonly used for the REM Mai is lung 7. I know we were kind of chit-chatting about this earlier today. Where was it that somebody said about using the opening point? That there was some.
About going to the head.
Oh, it's in that
Yeah.
book.
Okay.
Just to use the opening, not the
Okay.
closing one.
Okay, so basically what happened was Jeffrey Yuen got that book, okay, and it says there, don't use the opening and the coupled, use the opening point plus another significant point on the pathway. So then he teaches it like it's from the Taoist tradition, but actually it's from Kiko Matsumoto, who translated this book, which was from Li Jizhen in the 14th century, around Shakespeare time. Li Jizhen put all this stuff down, and that stuff he put down was based on the Mai Jing. So he was writing about the Mai Jing 1,000 years before, and we then got 500 years from that book to now. So this that green one, and I have, by the way, in my seminars I showed a black one. I showed one that's bigger, it's black, it's the same text. But I believe that's written in a way that's quite accessible as well, from what I've seen of it class. So it looks like a good book to study. However, okay, so basically we've got this protocol. We start with lung 7, and then we say, what am I gonna add to it? Okay, for insomnia, where are you gonna go with it?
So you could Ren 14.
Ren 14. Yeah, you can do Ren